fellow travelers through time. Settle in, find your comfort, and prepare to journey with me to the sun-baked lands of Kemet, where colossal monuments whisper tales of millennia past. Tonight, we embark on a different kind of expedition, one into the very act of discovery itself. The fascinating, often controversial, and always awe-inspiring story of Egyptology. From the pharaohs who first gazed upon their ancestors' marvels, to the scholars who finally cracked the silent language of hieroglyphs, and the brave souls still unearthing secrets today. This is the saga of how we came to know ancient Egypt. If you find yourself drawn into this story, please consider liking, sharing, or leaving a comment below. Your engagement helps these ancient voices reach more ears. Now let the journey begin. Good evening, and welcome back to Vibing History. Tonight, we embark on a journey, not just into ancient Egypt itself, but into the very act of discovering it. We're going to peel back the layers of time, not just on the pharaohs and the pyramids, but on the tireless, often obsessive, and sometimes deeply flawed individuals who have dedicated their lives to understanding this astonishing civilization. So, dim the lights, perhaps grab a warm drink, and let the gentle rhythm of forgotten sands and whispered histories guide you. For centuries, the land of the Nile has cast an almost hypnotic spell, drawing in minds from every corner of the globe. But what exactly is this fascination? This deep dive into the language of the gods, the architecture of eternity, the intricate tapestry of a culture that thrived for millennia? This is what we call Egyptology. It's the scientific study of ancient Egypt, encompassing everything from the worn edges of a pottery shard to the soaring majesty of a temple, from the whispers of ancient texts to the very spirit of a people who once commanded the most powerful empire the world had ever seen. It's a field that covers an immense span of time, stretching from the misty origins of the 5th millennium BC, long before the first pharaohs, all the way to the 4th century AD, when the last embers of its native religious practices finally faded. We're talking about an investigation into history, language, literature, religion, architecture, culture, and art. It's a pursuit of knowledge that seeks to connect us, not just intellectually, but emotionally, to the vibrant lives that once unfolded along the banks of the Nile. Now, you might think of Egyptology as a relatively modern pursuit, perhaps born with the grand European expeditions of the 18th and 19th centuries. But the truth, as it so often is far more layered and far more ancient. The very first explorers of ancient Egypt were, in fact, the ancient Egyptians themselves. Imagine this: Pharaoh Thutmose IV, inspired by a vivid dream, leading an excavation of the Great Sphinx of Giza, a colossal monument already ancient even in his time. He didn't just clear the sand. He then had a description of his dream and his act of restoration, carved onto what we now call the dream stele. This wasn't mere curiosity. It was a profound connection to their own past, a reverence for the achievements of their ancestors. Less than 2 centuries later, Prince Kamwezet, the 4th son of the legendary Ramesses II, would become a figure almost mythical in his dedication to preserving ancient sites. He wasn't just a prince. He was a scholar, a restorer, a man who traversed the land, identifying and safeguarding historic buildings, tombs, and temples, including the very pyramids that had stood for countless generations. He was, in essence, the first true Egyptologist, long before the term itself was ever conceived. He understood the immense value of heritage, the stories etched in stone, and the importance of ensuring they endured. As the millennia turned, and Egypt transitioned from its native rule to the dominion of the Greeks, and then the Romans, the fascination with its ancient wonders never truly waned. During the Hellenistic period, under the Ptolemies, that Greek dynasty that followed Alexander the Great, there was a concerted effort to understand and even emulate the grandeur of their Egyptian predecessors. The Ptolemies weren't just conquerors. They were patrons of culture, deeply interested in the works of the ancient Egyptians. Many of the iconic monuments, including the very pyramids we still marvel at today, underwent significant restoration during their reign. More than that, they even commissioned new temples built in the distinct Egyptian style, a testament to their respect for and integration into the land they now ruled. It was during this era that some of the earliest historical accounts of Egypt were penned, crucial texts that would later become cornerstones for future generations of scholars. Think of Herodotus, the father of history, whose vivid, if sometimes embellished, descriptions offered the classical world a window into this enigmatic land. Or Strabo, a geographer whose detailed observations provide invaluable insights. Diodorus Siculus, another ancient historian, compiled extensive narratives. And then there's the largely lost, yet incredibly important, work of Manetho, an Egyptian priest who, under the patronage of the Ptolemies, attempted to chronicle the entire dynastic history of Egypt, meticulously cataloging its pharaohs in a chronological order that still forms the backbone of our understanding today. These classical observers, though outsiders, played a vital role in transmitting knowledge of ancient Egypt to the wider world, ensuring that its legacy would not be entirely lost to the sands of time. The Romans, too, when they took control, continued this tradition of restoration, maintaining the grandeur they had inherited. But then came the long centuries of the Middle Ages, a period often mischaracterized as a dark age for knowledge. Yet, even then, the allure of Egypt persisted. Travelers undertaking pilgrimages to the Holy Land would often make deliberate detours to visit sites in Egypt. Cairo and its environs, believed to be the refuge of the Holy Family, drew many. And, of course, the Great Pyramids, those colossal enigmas, were often reimagined in the medieval mind as Joseph's granaries, built by the biblical patriarch to store grain during years of plenty. These accounts, preserved in their itineraria, or travelogues, offer us precious glimpses into the conditions of Egypt in those distant times, revealing a land that continued to hold a profound, if sometimes reinterpreted, significance. Crucially, it was during these medieval centuries that Islamic scholars played an absolutely pivotal role in preserving and actively studying ancient Egypt. While Europe was often embroiled in its own conflicts and transformations, Arabic scholars across the Islamic world were deeply engaged in intellectual pursuits. They weren't just copying, they were interpreting, analyzing, and even attempting to translate ancient Egyptian texts into Arabic. Think of Abdul Latif al-Baghdadi, a brilliant teacher at Cairo's Al-Azhar University in the 13th century, who produced incredibly detailed descriptions of ancient Egyptian monuments. His work wasn't merely observational. It was a scholarly endeavor to understand and document. Similarly, the 15th century Egyptian historian al-Makrizi left behind extensive and meticulous accounts of Egyptian antiquities. These scholars formed a vital bridge, connecting the knowledge of the ancient world to the Islamic Golden Age and safeguarding it for future generations, often when much of Europe had lost direct access to such understanding. Their contributions are often overlooked, but their role in the unbroken thread of Egyptological study is undeniable. As Europe gradually emerged from its medieval period, the spirit of exploration and inquiry began to rekindle. From the 13th century onward, European travel writings about ancient Egypt became more common. For a long time, these were mostly descriptive, filled with awe and wonder, but lacking a rigorous scientific approach. However, there were a few individuals who started to push the boundaries. Figures like Claude Sicard, Benoit de Millet, Frederick Louis Norden, and Richard Pocock made occasional, but significant, forays into what we might consider a more systematic study. Then, in the early 17th century, a man named John Greaves embarked on a truly remarkable undertaking. He meticulously measured the pyramids, having first meticulously inspected the broken obelisk of Domitian in Rome, which was then destined for Lord Arundel's collection in London. Greaves wasn't content with mere observation. He sought precision, quantitative data. His work culminated in the publication of the Illustrated Pyramidographia in 1646, a groundbreaking study that brought a new level of empirical rigor to the understanding of these ancient structures. But perhaps the most visionary figure of this proto-Egyptological era was the Jesuit scientist-priest Athanasius Kircher. Kircher was a polymath, a scholar of immense breadth, and it was he who, remarkably, was perhaps the first to truly hint at the phonetic importance of Egyptian hieroglyphs. He understood that Coptic, the liturgical language of Egyptian Christians, was not just a separate tongue, but a direct linguistic descendant, a living echo of ancient Egyptian. By drawing this connection, Kircher laid crucial intellectual groundwork. While he didn't fully decipher the hieroglyphs, his insight was profound, demonstrating that these enigmatic symbols were not merely ideograms or mystical pictures, but contained a phonetic dimension. For this singular contribution, Athanasius Kircher is often, and rightly, considered a foundational figure, a true founder of what would eventually become modern Egyptology. His work, however incomplete, marked a crucial turning point, moving the study of hieroglyphs away from pure symbolism and toward a phonetic understanding, setting the stage for the breakthroughs that were still centuries away. The true explosion of modern Egyptology, however, arrived with the rumble of military boots and the clash of empires. It truly began with Napoleon Bonaparte's invasion of Egypt in the late 18th century. Napoleon's campaign was not just a military endeavor. It was an intellectual one, bringing with it a vast retinue of scholars, scientists, and artists. This expedition, though ultimately a military failure for the French, proved to be an unparalleled success for the study of ancient Egypt. It was during this period, in 1799, that the Rosetta Stone was discovered, a slab of granodiorite inscribed with a decree issued in 3 scripts: ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, Demotic script, and ancient Greek. This single object, though seemingly unremarkable at the time, would become the undisputed key that finally unlocked the mysteries of ancient Egyptian writing. The scholarly fruits of Napoleon's expedition were immense. The publication of Memoirs sur l'Égypte in 1800, and then the monumental, multi-volume Description de l'Égypte between 1809 and 1829 were nothing short of revolutionary. These detailed works cataloged not just the ancient monuments, but also the flora, fauna, and contemporary history of Egypt, making a wealth of ancient Egyptian source material available to Europeans for the very first time. It was an unprecedented act of comprehensive documentation. When the British eventually captured Egypt from the French, they also, famously, acquired the Rosetta Stone in 1801. The Greek script on the stone was translated by 1803, providing a tantalizing glimpse into the content of the other, unknown scripts. But it was in 1822 that the monumental breakthrough occurred. The brilliant French scholar Jean-François Champollion, building on the work of others like Thomas Young, finally deciphered the corresponding Egyptian hieroglyphs. This was not just a translation. It was a revelation, the moment modern Egyptology truly began. The ability to read the language of the pharaohs opened up an entirely new world of understanding, allowing scholars to move beyond speculation and into rigorous academic inquiry. Champollion, along with Thomas Young and the Italian Ippolito Rossellini, became some of the first Egyptologists of wide acclaim, their names forever etched in the annals of discovery. The German Karl Richard Lepsius followed in their footsteps, embarking on extensive expeditions, meticulously mapping, excavating, and recording numerous sites across Egypt. These early pioneers were not just adventurers. They were scholars, driven by a profound desire to understand. But it was the English Egyptologist Flinders Petrie, working in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, who truly revolutionized the field of archaeology itself. Petrie introduced rigorous archaeological techniques to Egyptology, emphasizing meticulous field preservation, systematic recording, and controlled excavation. Before Petrie, many excavations were little more than treasure hunts, often destroying valuable context in the pursuit of spectacular finds. Petrie insisted on documenting every layer, every artifact, no matter how seemingly insignificant, understanding that the context was as important as the object itself. His methods transformed archaeology into a true science, and his work pushed back the understood timeline of Egyptian culture, establishing its origins as early as 4500 BC. Institutions like the British Egypt Exploration Fund, founded in 1882, enthusiastically promoted Petrie's scientific approach, ensuring its widespread adoption. As the field matured, the demands grew. Scholars dedicated themselves to producing hieroglyphic dictionaries, developing comprehensive demotic lexicons, and meticulously constructing an accurate outline of ancient Egyptian history. The allure of Egypt was not confined to professional scholars. Many highly educated amateurs, including remarkable women like Harriet Martineau and Florence Nightingale, also traveled to Egypt, immersing themselves in its ancient wonders. They left behind insightful accounts of their journeys, demonstrating a sophisticated familiarity with the latest European Egyptology, proving that the intellectual pursuit of Egypt was a broad and compelling one. And then, in 1922, came the discovery that captured the imagination of the entire world: Howard Carter's unveiling of the intact tomb of the 18th dynasty boy king Tutankhamun. This wasn't just an archaeological find, it was a cultural phenomenon. It brought an unprecedented understanding of Egyptian relics, an explosion of public interest, and immense acclaim to the field of Egyptology. For the first time, millions worldwide glimpsed the untouched splendor of a pharaoh's burial, and the mystique of ancient Egypt became a tangible reality. In the modern era, the landscape of Egyptology has continued to evolve. The Egyptian Ministry of State for Antiquities now plays a central role, controlling excavation permits and ensuring the ethical and scientific conduct of all archaeological work within its borders. The tools and techniques available to Egyptologists have also become incredibly sophisticated. We now use geophysical methods, remote sensing techniques, and advanced scientific applications to peer beneath the earth without disturbing it, to analyze materials with unprecedented precision, and to reconstruct ancient environments with astonishing accuracy. Just imagine some of the recent discoveries. In June of 2000, the European Institute for Underwater Archaeology, directed by Frank Gaudio, in collaboration with the Egyptian Ministry for Antiquities, uncovered the ancient sunken city of Thonis Heraclean in Abu Qir Bay. This wasn't just a handful of artifacts. It was an entire city swallowed by the sea, yielding colossal statues of a king and queen now on display at the Grand Egyptian Museum, and countless other treasures exhibited at the Bibliotheca Alexandrina and the Alexandria National Museum. The sea, it turns out, is another vast archive of history. More recently, in March 2017, an Egyptian-German team unearthed an 8-meter, 3,000-year-old statue, initially thought to depict Pharaoh Ramses II, though later identified as King Psammetichus I. Think of the immense scale, the sheer effort to unearth such a monumental piece of history. Just a few months later, in August 2017, the Ministry of Antiquities announced the discovery of 5 mud brick tombs dating back nearly 2,000 years, revealing gilded masks, pottery, and fragments of ancient writing still waiting to be deciphered. The discoveries keep coming almost relentlessly. In November 2017, 3 2,000-year-old Roman-era shipwrecks were found in Abu Qir Bay, their sunken cargo including a crystal royal head, perhaps belonging to a Roman commander, and gold coins from the time of Emperor Octavius Augustus. In April 2018, the head of a bust of Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius was found at the Temple of Kam Ombo. The same month, the shrine of the god Osiris-Deneb, dating back to the 25th dynasty, was discovered in the Temple of Karnak in Luxor, complete with offerings and symbols of the god Ammonius. And then there are the discoveries that are truly unique. In July 2018, a German-Egyptian team reported the finding of an incredibly rare gilded burial mask in Saqqara, the first such find since 1939. This mask, with eyes covered in obsidian, calcite, and onyx, was hailed as a sensation, a testament to the fragile survival of such precious items. In that same month, A colossal 30-ton black granite sarcophagus was found in Alexandria, containing 3 damaged skeletons, a possible family burial, along with a small gold artifact and thin sheets of gold. The pace of discovery seems to only accelerate. September 2018 brought a sandstone Sphinx statue from the Temple of Kam Ombo, dating to the Ptolemaic dynasty, and dozens of mummies in Saqqara. November 2018 saw the uncovering of 7 ancient Egyptian tombs in Saqqara, filled with cat mummies, some dating back over 6,000 years, alongside gilded and wooden statues of cats, and a bronze statue of the cat goddess Badet. In mid-December 2018, the Egyptian government announced the discovery of a previously unknown 4,400-year-old tomb in Saqqara, belonging to Wadi, a high-ranking priest under King Neferkari. This tomb, adorned with paintings and over 50 sculptures, contained 4 shafts leading to a sarcophagus below, promising even more secrets to be revealed. The sheer volume of these recent discoveries is staggering, showcasing the enduring richness of Egyptian soil. January 2019 brought the revelation of 20 tombs from the Second Intermediate Period in Kam al-Kelgan, containing animal remains, amulets, scarabs, and pottery. April 2019 saw the discovery of 35 mummified remains in a tomb in Aswan, dating to the Greco-Roman period, alongside painted funerary masks, bitumen vases, and wooden figurines. The hieroglyphics on this tomb identified it as belonging to a tradesman named Tjit. On April 13, 2019, a Czech Institute of Egyptology expedition discovered a 4,000-year-old tomb near Saqqara, belonging to an influential figure named Kui, who lived during the 5th dynasty. This L-shaped tomb, adorned with vibrant painted reliefs, had a tunnel entrance typical for pyramids, suggesting a possible connection between Kui and Pharaoh Djedkare-Sisi, who ruled at that time. The sunken city of Heraklion continued to yield treasures in July 2019, with ancient granite columns, a smaller Greek temple, and treasure-laden ships emerging from the depths. In September 2019, archaeologists announced the discovery of a 2,200-year-old temple believed to belong to Ptolemy IV, adorned with carvings of Hapi, the Nile god. Even during the challenges of 2020, the discoveries continued. May 2020 saw the uncovering of a unique cemetery from the 26th dynasty at Oxyrhynchus, containing tombstones, bronze coins, and small crosses. October 2020 brought the announcement of at least 59 sealed sarcophagi with mummies over 2,600 years old in Saqqara, along with statues of Tasokur and a bronze statue of the god Nefertum. Later that month, more than 2,500 years of colorful, sealed sarcophagi were unearthed in Saqqara, along with gilded wooden statues and over 80 coffins. In November 2020, over 100 delicately painted wooden coffins and 40 funeral statues were found, some containing mummies, dating back 2,500 years, along with funeral masks, canopic jars, and amulets. One open coffin revealed a man around 40 years old. The year 2021 began with a flurry of activity, with the discovery of over 50 wooden sarcophagi in 52 burial shafts from the New Kingdom period and a 13-foot-long papyrus containing texts from the Book of the Dead. Archaeologists, led by the renowned Zahi Hawass, also found the funerary temple of Nert and brick warehouses in Saqqara. Simultaneously, Egyptian Dominican researchers led by Kathleen Martinez announced the discovery of 2,000-year-old tombs with mummies adorned with golden tongues at Taposiris Magna, intended for speaking with the god Osiris in the afterlife. The funerary temple of Nert, previously unknown, revealed her name engraved on a fallen obelisk, identifying her as a wife of Teti, the first king of the 6th dynasty. February 2021 brought the discovery of a Ptolemaic period temple, a Roman fort, an early Coptic church, and a hieratic inscription at Shiha Fort in Aswan. The crumbling temple, decorated with palm leaf carvings, offered insights into Roman imperial presence. April 2021 unveiled 110 burial tombs at Kom el Kulgan, dating from the pre-dynastic to the Naqada III periods, containing remains of adults and a baby buried in a jar, along with ovens, stoves, and funerary equipment. In September 2021, ritualistic tools were discovered at Tel Al-Farah, including a limestone pillar depicting the goddess Hathor and incense burners with the head of the god Horus, alongside a massive well for holy water. And in 2022, the discoveries continued unabated. May 2022 saw the announcement of the 4,300-year-old tomb of a high-ranked official named Metjetju in Saqqara, who served as a priest and inspector of royal property. In June 2022, an alabaster bust of Alexander the Great was discovered, along with molds for amulets and statues. July 2022 brought the robbed tomb of an ancient Egyptian military official named Wahib Merenith in Giza's Abusir necropolis, containing two sarcophagi, one of white limestone and an inner basalt coffin inscribed with Chapter 72 of the Egyptian Book of the Dead. And finally, in August 2022, a 4,500-year-old temple dedicated to the sun god Ra was discovered, made of mud bricks, revealing storage rooms, cultic spaces, and well-preserved beer jars, along with seals of pharaohs from the 5th and 6th dynasties. These recent findings are not just isolated incidents. They represent a continuing, vibrant tapestry of discovery, constantly reshaping and deepening our understanding of this extraordinary civilization. They are a testament to the enduring power of ancient Egypt to captivate and reveal itself. One artifact, one inscription, one buried secret at a time. And as we move forward, the story of Egyptology itself continues to unfold, revealing not just the past, but also the complexities of how we perceive and interpret it. For centuries, the whispers of ancient Egypt, carried on the desert winds and etched into monumental stone, remained largely unintelligible to the wider world. Imagine, if you will, standing before the majestic temples of Karnak or Luxor, their walls covered in intricate carvings, hieroglyphs dancing across every surface, yet understanding none of the stories they so proudly proclaimed. It's like being in a crowded room, surrounded by fascinating conversations, but understanding not a single word. This was the frustrating reality for generations of scholars, adventurers, and dreamers who gazed upon these remnants of a magnificent civilization. Even the ancient Egyptians themselves, in their later dynasties, took steps to understand their own past. We hear tales of Thutmose IV, inspired by a dream, excavating the Great Sphinx, and Prince Kamwezet, centuries later, famed for his restorations and his almost scholarly dedication to identifying and preserving historical sites. He was, in a sense, the earliest known Egyptologist, driven by a profound respect for the legacy of his ancestors. Then came the Classical Age, with figures like Herodotus and Strabo, who offered some of the first written accounts of Egypt, often mixed with a generous helping of myth and rumor. Manetho, an Egyptian priest, attempted to chronologically list the pharaohs, a monumental task whose largely lost work still influences our understanding today. The Ptolemies, Greek rulers who inherited Egypt after Alexander the Great, were surprisingly keen on Egyptian culture, restoring monuments, and even building new temples in the ancient style. The Romans, too, left their mark, not just in conquest, but in restoration. Yet for all their interest, the fundamental challenge remained. The language itself, the key to unlocking the deepest secrets of this land, was still a closed book. As the Roman Empire faded and the Middle Ages took hold, Egypt became a pilgrimage detour for those journeying to the Holy Land. These travelers, often driven by faith, viewed the pyramids not as pharaonic tombs, but as Joseph's granaries, a biblical explanation for their colossal scale. Their itineraria, or travel accounts, offer tantalizing glimpses into medieval Egypt, but the linguistic barrier persisted. It was within the vibrant intellectual landscape of the Islamic world that a truly scientific curiosity began to stir regarding ancient Egypt. Medieval Islamic scholars, driven by a thirst for knowledge that defined their era, attempted to translate the ancient texts. They were crucial in preserving and transmitting what little was understood, connecting the ancient world to the burgeoning Islamic civilization. Think of Abdul Latif al-Baghdadi, a 13th century scholar from Al-Azhar University, whose meticulous descriptions of Egyptian monuments still impress us today, and the 15th century historian al-Makrizi, whose detailed accounts of antiquities further solidified this intellectual bridge. These were not mere tourists. These were genuine scholars grappling with the mysteries of the past. But it was Europe, slowly emerging from its own medieval period, that would finally stumble upon the ultimate key. Early European explorers, from the 13th century onward, offered sporadic and often fanciful accounts. Figures like Claude Sicard and Richard Pocock made some efforts at scientific observation, but it was in the early 17th century that John Greaves, an English mathematician and antiquarian, meticulously measured the pyramids, publishing his findings in the Pyramidographia in 1646. He was driven by a desire for empirical data, a harbinger of the scientific revolution to come. Then came the remarkable Jesuit scholar Athanasius Kircher, a polymath whose insatiable curiosity led him to delve into hieroglyphs. He, perhaps more than anyone before him, hinted at the phonetic nature of these symbols, demonstrating the connection between ancient Egyptian and Coptic, the liturgical language still used by Egyptian Christians. Kircher, in many ways, laid some of the foundational stones for what would become modern Egyptology, even if he didn't fully unlock the hieroglyphs himself. But the true dawn of modern Egyptology, the moment when the ancient voices of Egypt began to speak to us again, arrived with a bang, not a whisper. It came with the late 18th century invasion of Egypt by Napoleon Bonaparte. This wasn't just a military campaign. It was an intellectual expedition, with an army of scholars, scientists, and artists accompanying the French forces. And it was amidst this grand, albeit politically turbulent, endeavor in 1799 that a discovery of unparalleled significance was made: the Rosetta Stone. Imagine the scene. French soldiers, engaged in fortifying a fort near the town of Rosetta, uncover a seemingly unremarkable slab of dark granodiorite. But this stone was far from unremarkable. It bore an inscription in 3 distinct scripts: ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs, Demotic script, and ancient Greek. The Greek script was immediately recognizable, and its translation in 1803 offered a tantalizing glimpse into the stone's content, a decree issued by King Ptolemy V in 196 BC. Now, this was the breakthrough. For the first time, scholars had a parallel text. It was a linguistic bridge, an ancient dictionary carved in stone. The race was on. The British, having captured Egypt from the French in 1801, also gained possession of the Rosetta Stone, bringing it to the British Museum, where it has resided ever since. The challenge of deciphering the hieroglyphs was immense, a monumental intellectual puzzle that captivated the finest minds of Europe. Thomas Young, an English polymath, made significant strides, correctly identifying some of the phonetic values and understanding the direction of the script. But it was a brilliant young Frenchman, Jean-François Champollion, who, with an almost obsessive dedication, finally cracked the code in 1822. Champollion, drawing upon his deep knowledge of Coptic and meticulously comparing the hieroglyphic and demotic texts with a known Greek translation, realized that hieroglyphs were not merely symbolic pictures, as had been long assumed. They were a complex system, a combination of phonetic signs, ideograms, and determinatives. He recognized the names of Ptolemy and Cleopatra within cartouches, oval enclosures that marked royal names, and from those, he painstakingly built a phonetic alphabet, unlocking the sounds and meanings of the ancient language. It was a moment of profound revelation, like hearing the sound of a long-lost melody or seeing the colors of a forgotten painting for the very first time. Champollion's decipherment of the Rosetta Stone was a watershed moment, marking the true beginning of modern Egyptology. It transformed the study of ancient Egypt from speculative curiosity into a rigorous academic discipline. Suddenly, the vast libraries of papyri, the countless inscriptions on temple walls and tomb interiors were no longer mute. They began to speak, offering direct, unfiltered voices from a civilization that had been silent for millennia. The history, the literature, the religion, the architecture, the culture, the art, all of it was now accessible, waiting to be read, interpreted, and understood. From this point, the field exploded. Champollion himself, alongside Thomas Young and Ippolito Rossellini, became foundational figures. The German Karl Richard Lepsius embarked on extensive expeditions, mapping, excavating, and meticulously recording numerous sites, laying down systematic archaeological practices. Then came Flinders Petrie, an English Egyptologist who, in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, revolutionized archaeology itself. He introduced scientific methods of field preservation, detailed recording, and systematic excavation techniques that are still fundamental to the discipline today. Petrie's work pushed back the known timeline of Egyptian culture, demonstrating its incredible antiquity, reaching back as early as 4500 BC. His influence was so profound that institutions like the British Egypt Exploration Fund, founded in 1882, enthusiastically promoted his rigorous approach. The early 20th century saw a flurry of activity. Scholars worked tirelessly to create hieroglyphic dictionaries, decipher the intricacies of the Demotic script, and construct a coherent timeline of ancient Egyptian history. In the United States, the establishment of the Oriental Institute at the University of Chicago, spearheaded by James Henry Breasted, cemented Egyptology as a legitimate academic field. Breasted's epigraphic survey, dedicated to making and publishing accurate copies of monumental inscriptions, ensured that these precious records would be preserved and studied by generations to come. And, of course, no discussion of early modern Egyptology would be complete without mentioning the electrifying discovery of Howard Carter in 1922. The unearthing of the intact tomb of the 18th dynasty pharaoh Tutankhamun, with its unimaginable wealth of treasures, captured the world's imagination like nothing before it. It wasn't just a discovery, it was a global phenomenon, bringing ancient Egypt vividly to life for millions and further solidifying the allure and importance of Egyptology. So, from the casual wanderings of medieval pilgrims to the meticulous work of dedicated scholars, from the accidental discovery of a stone slab to the painstaking decipherment of a lost language, the journey to understand ancient Egypt has been a long and winding one. But with the Rosetta Stone as our guide, and the tireless efforts of these early pioneers, the magnificent civilization along the Nile finally began to speak, and its stories continue to resonate with us, thousands of years later. The whispers of the past, once carried only on the wind, are now clear and vibrant, a testament to humanity's enduring quest to understand its own origins. We've journeyed through the earliest human curiosity, from the dreams of pharaohs to the diligent work of medieval scholars. But the true blossoming of Egyptology, as we understand it today, required a spark, a catalyst that would ignite a firestorm of discovery and reevaluation. That spark, perhaps surprisingly, arrived not with a scholar's gentle brush, but with the thunderous march of an emperor's army. The late 18th century marked a pivotal moment. The year 1798 saw Napoleon Bonaparte, with his grand ambitions and equally grand retinue of scientists and artists, descend upon Egypt. This was more than a military campaign. It was a cultural expedition on an unprecedented scale. And it was this very invasion, this convergence of military might and intellectual curiosity, that led to one of the most significant finds in the history of archaeology, the Rosetta Stone. Imagine, if you will, the chaos and the dusty heat of July 1799. French soldiers, under the command of Captain Pierre-François Bouchard, were busy dismantling an ancient wall near the town of Rosetta, now known as Rashid, on the west bank of the Nile. They were preparing to expand a fort, a mundane military task. But as they tore away at the old stones, they unearthed something extraordinary, a dark granodiorite stele, inscribed with 3 distinct scripts. 2 of them were Egyptian, hieroglyphic and demotic, and the third, crucially, was ancient Greek. Now, for centuries, the hieroglyphs of ancient Egypt had been a tantalizing, impenetrable mystery. Scholars had gazed upon them, pondered them, and often wildly misinterpreted them, convinced they were purely symbolic, mystical messages beyond the grasp of mere mortals. But with the Rosetta Stone, a key had finally been found. The Greek script, already understood, offered a direct pathway to unlocking the ancient Egyptian languages. The British, ever-keen rivals, eventually captured Egypt from the French in 1801, and with it, the Rosetta Stone. By 1803, the Greek text had been fully translated, confirming its potential. But the real breakthrough, the moment when modern Egyptology truly began to breathe, came in 1822. It was then that the brilliant French scholar Jean-François Champollion, after years of painstaking dedication and comparing the scripts, finally deciphered the corresponding Egyptian hieroglyphs. This wasn't just a translation, it was a resurrection. It was like suddenly being able to hear the voices of a long-silenced civilization. With this newfound ability to read ancient Egyptian writing, the study of ancient Egypt could proceed with an academic rigor that had been impossible before. Champollion, along with Thomas Young and Ippolito Rossellini, became some of the first widely acclaimed Egyptologists. Soon after, the German Carl Richard Lepsius joined the ranks, meticulously mapping, excavating, and recording numerous sites, laying down the groundwork for systematic archaeological investigation. But even with the ability to read the texts, archaeology itself needed refinement. Enter the English Egyptologist Flinders Petrie. From 1853 to 1942, Petrie revolutionized the field by introducing rigorous archaeological techniques to Egypt. Before him, many excavations were little more than glorified treasure hunts. Petrie, however, emphasized field preservation, meticulous recording of every find, and systematic excavation. He understood that context was everything, that the small, seemingly insignificant pieces could tell as much of a story as the glittering gold. His work, which pushed the known date of Egyptian culture back to as early as 4500 BCE, was championed by organizations like the British Egypt Exploration Fund, founded in 1882, which helped disseminate his methods. It wasn't just professional scholars venturing into the sands. The allure of Egypt drew many highly educated amateurs, including remarkable women like Harriet Martineau and Florence Nightingale, who traveled to the country and left behind accounts revealing a deep familiarity with the latest European Egyptology, demonstrating that the fascination was widespread and deeply felt. And then, a discovery that would forever etch Egyptology into the global consciousness. Howard Carter's unveiling of the tomb of the 18th dynasty King Tutankhamun in 1922. The sheer opulence, the breathtaking preservation, and the almost mythical story of a young pharaoh's undisturbed resting place captivated the world. It brought an unprecedented understanding of Egyptian relics to the public and showered wide acclaim upon the field, turning Egyptology into a household name. In the United States, the establishment of the Oriental Institute at the University of Chicago and the ambitious expeditions of James Henry Breasted to Egypt and Nubia cemented Egyptology as a legitimate academic discipline. Breasted, in 1924, even initiated the Epigraphic Survey, dedicated to creating and publishing accurate copies of monument inscriptions, recognizing the fragility of these ancient records. Other prominent institutions like the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the University of Pennsylvania, and the Museum of Fine Arts, Boston, also conducted significant excavations, enriching American collections and further broadening the field. The journey of discovery continued relentlessly into the modern era. Today, the Egyptian Ministry of State for Antiquities carefully controls excavation permits, ensuring ethical and scientific practices. Modern technology has become an invaluable partner, with geophysical methods and advanced sensing techniques revealing what lies hidden beneath the sand and water without disturbing precious sites. Consider the European Institute for Underwater Archaeology, directed by Frank Gaudio, which, in cooperation with the Egyptian Ministry for Antiquities, made breathtaking discoveries. In June 2000, they brought to light the ancient sunken city of Thonis Heraclean in Abu Qir Bay. Imagine that. An entire city swallowed by the sea, now yielding colossal statues of kings and queens, their forms still majestic despite centuries underwater. These finds, along with countless other artifacts, now grace the Grand Egyptian Museum, the Bibliotheca Alexandrina, and the Alexandria National Museum, bridging the gap between a lost world and our present. The pace of discovery has only accelerated in recent years. Each year brings new revelations, new fragments of the past that challenge our understanding and deepen our appreciation. In March 2017, for instance, an Egyptian-German team unearthed an 8-meter statue, initially thought to be the imposing Ramses II, but later identified more likely as King Psammetic I. That same excavation revealed a substantial piece of a limestone statue of Pharaoh Seti II. August 2017 saw archaeologists unearth 5 mud brick tombs, nearly 2,000 years old, at Bir esh-Shagala, containing worn masks gilded with gold, large jars, and even pottery with ancient Egyptian writing yet to be deciphered. A few months later, in November 2017, another underwater mission in Abu Qir Bay unveiled 3 Roman-era shipwrecks, their cargo including a royal head of crystal, perhaps belonging to a Roman commander, along with gold coins and pottery. The early months of 2018 were equally prolific. In April, the head of a bust of Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius was discovered at the temple of Kom-Ombo. That same month, a shrine to the god Osiris-Taneb, dating back to the 25th dynasty, was found in the temple of Karnak, offering glimpses into ancient religious practices through clay pots and stone panels depicting offerings. Then came July 2018 with a truly rare find, a gilded burial mask dating from the Sate Persian period, discovered in a partly damaged wooden coffin in Saqqara. This was a sensation, as very few masks of precious metal have survived the relentless looting of ancient tombs. The mask, with its obsidian, calcite, and onyx eyes, offered a haunting glimpse of funerary artistry. And in the very same month, a 30-ton black granite sarcophagus was unearthed in Alexandria, containing 3 damaged skeletons, likely a family, amidst red-brown sewage water. The discoveries continued to pour forth. September 2018 brought a small, exquisite sandstone sphinx statue at the temple of Kom-Ombo, likely from the Ptolemaic dynasty, and dozens of mummies, 2,000 years old, in Saqqara. November 2018 witnessed the discovery of 7 ancient tombs in Saqqara, containing a remarkable collection of scarab and cat mummies, some dating back over 6,000 years, alongside gilded wooden statues of cats and a bronze figure of the cat goddess Badet. As 2018 drew to a close, a previously unknown 4,400-year-old tomb was announced in Saqqara, belonging to Wadi, a high-ranking priest under King Neferkar-Kakai. Its vivid paintings and over 50 sculptures offered an astonishing window into the life of a 5th dynasty official. And the new century has shown no signs of slowing down. January 2019 saw a collection of 20 tombs from the Second Intermediate Period in Qom al-Kelgan. April 2019 brought the discovery of 35 mummified remains in Aswan from the Greco-Roman period, including a remarkably preserved mother and child, and artifacts like painted funerary masks. That same month, near the Saqqara necropolis, a 4,000-year-old tomb belonging to an influential individual named Kui, with astonishingly bright painted reliefs, was unearthed. Its proximity to Pharaoh Djedker I-Sisi's pyramid suggested a significant connection. The year 2019 continued its generous offerings. Ancient granite columns, a smaller Greek temple, and treasure-laden ships were found in the sunken city of Heraclean in July. September brought a 2,200-year-old temple believed to belong to Ptolemy IV, adorned with inscriptions of Hapi, the Nile god. Even during the challenging times of 2020, Egypt continued to yield its secrets. May saw the discovery of a unique cemetery from the 26th dynasty at Oxyrhynchus, containing tombstones and bronze coins. October 2020 was a banner month, with the announcement of at least 59 sealed sarcophagi in Saqqara, followed by over 80 more colorful sealed sarcophagi, some containing mummies, along with gilded wooden statues. By November, more than 100 delicately painted wooden coffins and 40 funeral statues were unearthed, dating back as far as 2,500 years, providing an invaluable glimpse into Ptolemaic funerary practices. One open coffin even revealed a mummy, scanned by X-ray, likely a man around 40. The year 2021 began with a bang. Over 50 wooden sarcophagi in 52 burial shafts from the New Kingdom period and a 13-foot-long papyrus containing texts from the Book of the Dead, found alongside the funerary temple of Nert, a previously unknown wife of King Teti of the 6th dynasty. Further discoveries at Taposiris Magna revealed 2,000-year-old tombs with mummies sporting golden tongues, placed there for speaking with the god Osiris in the afterlife. February brought a Ptolemaic period temple, a Roman fort, and an early Coptic church in Aswan. And in April, a staggering 110 burial tombs, ranging from the pre-dynastic to the Second Intermediate period, were discovered in the Deucalion Governorate, including the remains of adults and a baby buried in a jar. Even into 2022, the revelations continue. May brought the discovery of the nearly 4,300-year-old tomb of Metjetju, a high-ranking priest and inspector of royal property, in Saqqara, with elaborate decorations. In June, an alabaster bust of Alexander the Great was announced, along with molds for amulets. July saw the discovery of the robbed tomb of Wahiber Merenith, an ancient Egyptian military official from around 500 BC, with 2 sarcophagi, the inner one containing an inscription from the 72nd chapter of the Book of the Dead. And in August, a 4,500-year-old mud brick temple dedicated to the sun god Ra was discovered, complete with storage rooms, cultic spaces, and dozens of well-preserved beer jars, along with seals of pharaohs from the 5th and 6th dynasties. Each of these finds, sometimes seemingly small, sometimes monumental, adds another brushstroke to the vast canvas of ancient Egypt. They don't just fill gaps in our knowledge. They often force us to reconsider long-held assumptions. The sheer volume and diversity of these discoveries underscore a vital truth. Egypt still holds countless secrets, waiting patiently beneath the sands, beneath the waters, waiting for the curious minds and careful hands to bring them back to light. This ongoing narrative of discovery is a testament to the enduring power of history, a reminder that the past is never truly static, always revealing new layers for us to explore and understand. And so, we arrive at a critical juncture in our exploration of Egyptology. We've journeyed through the earliest self-explorers, witnessed the classical world's awe, and lingered in the contemplative studies of medieval Islamic scholars. We've seen the European explorer's gradual awakening, followed by the momentous discovery of the Rosetta Stone, which truly ignited modern Egyptology. But as we reflect on this rich tapestry of discovery, it is absolutely crucial that we pause and examine an often unspoken, yet deeply influential, thread woven throughout its history, the thread of bias. For far too long, the narrative of ancient Egypt, as presented by early Egyptologists, was profoundly shaped by the prevailing colonial attitudes and deeply flawed racial theories of their time. It's a complex and uncomfortable truth, but one we must confront to truly understand how our knowledge of this magnificent civilization has been constructed. Consider, for a moment, the immense power of who gets to tell a story. When the storytellers are almost exclusively from one cultural background, often with preconceived notions about the world, the story inevitably becomes skewed. Early European Egyptologists, while undoubtedly driven by a passion for discovery, frequently interpreted their findings through a Eurocentric lens. They often sought to distance ancient Egypt from its rightful place within the vast, complex, and rich tapestry of African cultures. Think about it. Here was a civilization of immense sophistication, thriving on the African continent, developing monumental architecture, intricate writing systems, advanced medicine, and profound spiritual beliefs. Yet, some early scholars, grappling with their own biases, found it difficult to reconcile this grandeur with their prevailing, often racist, views of Africa. The result? A narrative that sometimes presented ancient Egypt as an anomaly, almost as if it had somehow dropped from a different continent, an offshoot of earlier Middle Eastern developments, as scholar Christopher Ehret would later describe it. This wasn't always a conscious malice, but a deeply ingrained product of the times. As Cheikh Anta Diop, a brilliant Senegalese historian and anthropologist, powerfully argued in his seminal work, The African Origin of Civilization, much of the prevailing views in Egyptology were driven by biased scholarship and colonial attitudes. He challenged the very foundations of how ancient Egypt was being understood, urging a reevaluation from an African perspective. Bruce Trigger, another notable scholar, echoed this sentiment, pointing out that early modern scholarship on the Nile Valley populations had been marred by a confusion of race, language, and culture, and by an accompanying racism. It was a muddled brew of ideas that often led to the mischaracterization of indigenous African populations and the creation of problematic theories, such as the Hamitic hypothesis, which sought to explain away African achievements by attributing them to a supposed white or Hamitic origin. British Africanist Basil Davidson, writing in 1995, eloquently dissected these unsatisfactory labels: Bushman, Negro, Negroid, often attached to indigenous African peoples. He strongly criticized the categorization of North African stocks as white, arguing that the ancient Egyptians belonged not to any specific Egyptian region or Near Eastern heritage, but to that wide community of peoples who lived between the Red Sea and the Atlantic Ocean, shared a common Saharan Sudanese culture, and drew their reinforcements from the same great source. This perspective profoundly recenters Egypt within its true geographical and cultural context. Even more recently, in 2018, Stuart Tyson Smith highlighted a persistent practice among some Egyptologists to divorce Egypt from its proper Northeast African context, instead framing it as fundamentally part of a Near Eastern or Mediterranean economic, social, and political sphere, hardly African at all, or at best a crossroad between the Near East, the Eastern Mediterranean, and Africa, which carries with it the implication that it is ultimately not really part of Africa. He explicitly called out the view that while ancient Egypt was clearly in Africa, it was not so clearly of Africa, as reflecting long-standing Egyptological biases. Smith concluded, with compelling evidence, that the interrelated cultural features shared between Northeast African dynamics and Pharaonic Egypt are not mere survivals or coincidences, but deeply shared traditions with common origins in the deep past. It's a testament to the evolving nature of scholarship that this conversation is now, finally, gaining the prominence it deserves. In 2021, Mark van der Meijeroep acknowledged that it was only recently that traditional scholarship started to acknowledge the African background of Egyptian culture, partly in response to world history's aim to replace dominant Western-centered narratives with others that focused more on the contributions of other regions, including Africa. He also pointed to the powerful insistence of African diaspora communities who wanted the continent's ancient history approached outside a Eurocentric context, and who rightly championed the use of ancient Egyptian terms like Kemet instead of merely the European ones. Egyptian archaeologist Fakhri Hassan, in a poignant 2021 statement, underscored this vital perspective. Egypt is situated where African cultural developments can join, mingle, and blend with those of neighboring cultures of Southwest Asia and the Mediterranean. Yet, Egyptology, through its Eurocentered perspectives, has generally been lax in exploring and valorizing Egypt's African origins. This not only leads to theoretical shortcomings, but also to serious ethical ramifications, undermining efforts for a new world of justice, equity, and fraternity. He called upon Egyptologists, as socially responsible scholars, to engage in emphasizing the grounding of Egypt in African cultures and its interaction throughout its history with African cultures. This isn't just about academic rigor. It's about justice and a more complete understanding of humanity's shared heritage. Andrea Manzo, in 2022, observed that early Egyptologists had often situated the origins of dynastic Egypt within a broad Hamitic horizon that characterized several regions of Africa, and that these views continued to dominate well into the second half of the 20th century. But he also noted that more recent studies have pointed out the relevance of African elements to the rise of Egyptian culture, directly countering the traditional view that considered Egypt more closely linked to the Near East than to the rest of Africa. Even in 2023, Christopher Ehret, while acknowledging the advancements of recent generations of scholars, highlighted that the previous 2 centuries of Western scholarship had presented Egypt as an offshoot of earlier Middle Eastern developments. He emphasized that new bodies of evidence from Egypt and Nubia are finally dispelling these older assumptions, though he cautioned that these old ideas have regrettably influenced scholars in other disciplines, such as genetics. The ripples of past biases are wide and long-lasting. So, how does this recognition of bias change our understanding of Egyptology as an academic discipline? It forces us to be more critical, more inclusive, and more rigorous in our approach. It demands that we actively seek out and amplify African voices in the field, not just as subjects of study, but as fellow scholars, interpreters, and custodians of their own history. The formal establishment of Egyptology as an academic discipline in the 19th and early 20th centuries, through the pioneering work of figures like Ippolito Rossellini in Italy, Emmanuel de Rouge in France, Samuel Birch in England, and Heinrich Brugsch in Germany, laid crucial foundations. Flinders Petrie, that influential British Egyptologist, truly revolutionized archaeology through his meticulous techniques of field preservation, recording, and excavation, pushing the chronology of Egyptian culture back to 4500 BC. Institutions like the British Egypt Exploration Fund, founded in 1882, became central to these efforts, promoting Petrie's scientific methods. The drive to produce comprehensive hieroglyphic dictionaries, demotic lexicons, and detailed outlines of ancient Egyptian history was undeniably transformative. Across the Atlantic, the United States saw the rise of its own Egyptological centers. The Oriental Institute at the University of Chicago, under the leadership of James Henry Breasted, established Egyptology as a legitimate field of study there. Breasted's epigraphic survey, initiated in 1924, set the standard for accurate copies of monuments. American museums and universities, like the Metropolitan Museum of Art and the University of Pennsylvania, actively conducted excavations, enriching American collections and contributing to the global body of knowledge. More recently, in 1999, Egyptology made its academic debut in Greece at the University of the Aegean under the leadership of Professor Ioannis Laritsis, fostering a successful Hellenic-Egyptian collaboration in research and education. Today, Egyptology is a vibrant, global academic discipline, with universities around the world offering specialized degrees. Institutions like the University of Chicago, Brown, Oxford, Cambridge, Leiden, and Uppsala provide advanced programs, continuously expanding the depth of our understanding. The International Association of Egyptologists, i.e., serves as the professional organization for scholars, hosting the International Congress of Egyptologists every 4 years, a crucial platform for sharing new discoveries and evolving perspectives. Societies like the Egypt Exploration Society continue to support fieldwork and research, and the discoveries continue almost daily, constantly enriching and sometimes completely reshaping our understanding. From a monumental find of the sunken city of Thonis Heraclean in Abu Qir Bay in 2000, revealing colossal statues and countless artifacts that have been hidden beneath the waves for millennia, to the ongoing excavations unveiling new tombs, statues, and papyri. The past is always revealing new secrets. Consider the ongoing work. The discovery of an 8-meter statue thought to depict Ramses II or Samitic I in 2017. The unearthing of 5 mud brick tombs at Bir esh-Shagala with gilded masks and ancient writing. The Roman-era shipwrecks in Alexandria's Abu Qir Bay in 2017, laden with royal crystal heads, gold coins, and pottery. The list goes on and on. In 2018, we saw the head of Emperor Marcus Aurelius at Qom Ombo, the shrine of Osiris-Taneb in Karnak, and a sensation of a rare gilded burial mask from the Sate Persian period in Saqqara. The 30-ton black granite sarcophagus found in Alexandria that year, containing 3 damaged skeletons, sparked global fascination. The sandstone sphinx at Qom Ombo, the dozens of mummies in Saqqara, the 7 ancient tombs yielding cat mummies and precious artifacts. Each discovery is a piece of a larger puzzle. Just recently, in 2020, we heard about the remarkable find of at least 59 sealed sarcophagi with mummies over 2,600 years old in Saqqara, alongside statues of Tasokar and Nefertum. And then, a month later, over 100 delicately painted wooden coffins and 40 funeral statues. Each one a time capsule, a direct connection to lives lived thousands of years ago. The year 2021 brought us the discovery of more than 50 wooden sarcophagi in 52 burial shafts dating back to the New Kingdom, alongside a 13-foot-long papyrus containing text from the Book of the Dead, and the truly intriguing discovery of 2,000-year-old tombs with mummies sporting golden tongues at Taposiris Magna, believed to be for speaking with Osiris in the afterlife. What a concept to contemplate. More recently, in 2022, the nearly 4,300-year-old tomb of Metjetju, a high-ranking priest and inspector of royal property, was unearthed in Saqqara. The alabaster bust of Alexander the Great, found in Cairo, along with molds for amulets, provided a glimpse into later periods. And the monumental finding of the robbed tomb of Wahib Merenith, a military official, in Giza's Abu Sir necropolis, with its intricately inscribed sarcophagi, provided yet another window into the lives of ancient Egyptians. And the 4,500-year-old Sun Temple dedicated to Ra, discovered by Polish archaeologists, offers new insights into ancient religious practices and monumental construction. These incredible finds are not merely archaeological curiosities. They're profound connections to our shared human past. And as the field of Egyptology continues to evolve, it does so with a growing awareness of its own history, its biases, and its profound responsibility to present the story of ancient Egypt not as an isolated marvel, but as an integral, vibrant, and undeniably African civilization. This ongoing journey of discovery, now increasingly viewed through a more inclusive and ethically conscious lens, promises to unveil even deeper truths about the incredible ingenuity, resilience, and spiritual depth of the ancient Egyptians. It's a testament to the power of human curiosity and the enduring allure of a civilization that continues to whisper its stories across the millennia, now with a chorus of many voices. And so, our long journey through the history of Egyptology draws to a close. We've witnessed the tireless pursuit of knowledge, the triumphs of decipherment, the thrill of discovery, and the crucial debates that reshape our understanding of this magnificent civilization. It's a field as dynamic as the sands that cover its secrets. I hope this deep dive into how ancient Egypt was rediscovered has illuminated a new facet of history for you. If you enjoyed this narration, please consider liking, sharing, and following for more expeditions into the past. What were your thoughts on tonight's story, and what ancient mysteries would you like to explore next? Until our next journey, keep vibing with history.